Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning, everyone. It is now 11:03 a.m. Calling the roll for the Monday, February 11th Board of Control meeting. We have Nan Baker. Here. Dale Miller.
Here.
Khalil Sarin serving as an alternate for Dan Brady.
Here.
Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Mike Dever.
Here.
Armin Budish.
Here.
Amy Himmeline serving as an alternate for Dennis Kennedy.
Here.
Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Minutes from February 4th. Are there any corrections? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. One tabled item.
Yes, the first tabled item that we have is item number
I'm
B.
sorry, was there any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
A tabled item, BC 2019-94, Department of Law. It's a two-part item. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 43955, which will result in an award recommendation to Atticus Administration, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $9,144 for third-party class action administration services. And it's for the period September 5th, 2018 through September 4th, 2019. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Awata Fassad on behalf of the Law Department. I am here today on the Atticus Administration contract. This contract was part of a court-approved settlement in the Fitzpatrick matter. Fitzpatrick involved an overtime claim brought under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA. It was brought as a collective action on behalf of current and former employees. Approximately 550 individuals joined in the lawsuit. The case was settled for $52,000. These type of FLSA matters require the court to approve the settlement. The settlement documents spell out the terms of the settlement and how the funds would be administered, including associated deadlines. It was necessary to start working on the administration of the settlement to meet the court-imposed deadlines. Collective and class action litigation settlements are typically administered by a third-party administrator, a TPA. Again, here we have 550 people, and there were strict court-imposed deadlines that we had to meet. The services that were included, in this case, the TPA administrator was Atticus Administration. They issued notices of settlement and release claim forms to all the plaintiffs. They performed skip tracing when settlement documents were returned because of wrong addresses. They timely collected complete release and claim forms for all 550 people. They issued cure letters if the releases weren't signed or had insufficient information. They followed up on questions, and they distributed the settlement payments. If there are any questions.
Okay, is there any questions? Thank you very much. Anybody have a question? Councilman Miller.
Can you tell me the general nature of what was alleged to occur that resulted in our having this liability?
Okay. Well, settlement is not an admission of liability.
That's why I said alleged.
Right, thank you. But in this case, the plaintiffs alleged that the county failed to incorporate overtime payments in the regular rate, causing an underpayment in their pay.
And did all 550 some people receive a settlement?
So what happens in this settlement? They join in the lawsuit, right? So they are plaintiffs. And then notices are issued to these individuals, and they have a choice after there's a settlement to submit their claims and release forms. And my understanding, not everyone submitted their release forms, which is typical in these class action lawsuits.
If you have that many people and the payout is something like, you said $52,000.
$52,000.
So the individual payments are quite modest, it sounds like.
Yes, that is correct, and that also includes attorney's fees.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker.
Just curious, especially with the amount of work that's needed, is there a reason why this contract started in September of 2018? And we are just, and we are just now asking for the approval?
Well, again, this was part of a court order settlement, and we had to rush to get it through. It was part of that was submitted to the court for approval. And my understanding, it was timely entered into the system after the court issued its order.
So 5 or 6 months that's about how much time it took to get it through the court? Okay. Thank you.
Is it my recollection that Atticus was specifically named in the court order?
Yes.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes. Thank you very much.
Moving on to new items, item BC 2019-106, Department of Public Works, recommending it awards on requisition 43764 and enter into contracts with various providers in the total amount not to exceed $400,000 for general sanitary engineering services, and it's for the period February 15th, 2019 through February 14th, 2022. For A, Chagrin Valley Engineering Ltd. in the amount of $200,000, and B, Brown and Caldwell in the amount not to exceed $200,000.
Mike Chambers, Public Works. Approximately every 18 months, we go out for these type of services to help offset our sanitary engineering division. This was a RFQ. There was 9 proposals submitted. 2 were selected. Chagrin Valley is actually an SBE set-aside, and we're asking for approval.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-107, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Microsoft Corporation for Microsoft Premier Training and Support Services. And it's for the period November 1st, 2017 through October 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to December 5th, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $100,161.20.
Department of IT. This amendment is to continue on to the 12/5/19 date. With me today is Jeremy Neal with Security Department of IT that explained use for planning and security.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilman Miller.
Can you explain why this contract is being extended for just a month?
Yeah. Simply, Microsoft only recognizes the effective date of the contract being the date it was executed by the county, which is in their opinion signature date. It goes back to the big question that we have with legal. That being said, it was signed electronically on 12/6 of 17 originally. So they're claiming that the contract expires on 12/5, and they don't understand why we want to either have time and or money spent when they recognize it. So this is we're doing the amendment basically to 12/5/19 for our internal purposes, but they already recognize 12/5/19.
Well, my question then is, why do we need more money? It seems like if they didn't recognize that the contract was in effect until 12/5/17, that we should be able to take, it's a 2-year contract, we should be able to take it to 12/5/2019 at the same amount of money as opposed to an additional $100,161.
Well, there's 2 separate things here. There is a recognized need for the additional, but the date issue is just aligning it with their understanding.
Can you explain?
Big issue whatsoever, we'd be coming forward with an amendment for $100,000. Big issue whatsoever. State issue is simply fine with Microsoft.
The additional monies for the $100,000 are for specific security level projects to enhancement of the security of the overall county's infrastructure within Microsoft. So this was a budgeted item for our security roadmaps that have been planned out.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, normally contracts are extended and additional money is provided to see the contract through the time extension. But what you're saying here is that in this particular case, the time extension and the additional money really have nothing to do with each other.
Correct.
And that the time extension solves a technical problem and the money is because some additional scope of work is required that had not been previously planned for. Is that correct?
Specifically, the dollar amount for the amendment is a recognized need that's outside of the conversation of the effective term altogether. This aligned, the amendment also includes the date of 12/5/19 to align with the way Microsoft recognizes the original contract effective date.
Okay.
Thanks. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for the clarification, by the way. All those in favor, please say aye.
Did we get a
Oh, I
motion?
need to move first. You're right. I move that we approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a passed. Thank you.
Item BC 2019-108, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Navigator Management Partners, LLC, for enterprise data architecture development services. And it's for the period March 5th, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $100,000.
Good morning again, Dennis Sullivan, Department of IT. If you recall, this was on a draft agenda a while ago. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but it was initially questioned in regards to the method of payments. There was going to be a one-time prepayment up front for this. That has been resolved. This amendment is going to go forward with payments being made upon invoice. And there was also a question in regards to the funding source being general fund, and that has been resolved and approved for ERP expense.
Are there any questions?
Yes. Is this an expense that we've anticipated needing this additional year, or does this money have to come out of the $933,000 or so in the last report that we had as contingency on the ERP project?
With me today is John Shuffler and Ralph Pershamp, and I'll let them respond to that.
Well, yeah, in terms of the funding source, it's the ERP.
I mean, the recognized need, the plan.
Oh, the need for this?
Yeah,
This is to support the ERP project, to archive the data that will be replaced by the Infor project.
Dale, more specifically that I know about is this data lake, if I could, and I don't want to get into their world whatsoever, but data lake's going to act as the repository, and it's going to take over the records from the legacy system. So if this work is not completed, to my understanding, by the end of the year, we would owe the state of Ohio Department of Administrative Services another $420,000 to keep this information in the legacy system alive.
Okay, that would be good. Okay.
That's what I know.
Maggie Keenan, OBM, it's not coming out of the contingency. This has been in the budget for at least a year and a half.
Fine, great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Seaman.
so I'd like a little bit more explanation about what the services are. And for context of this question, this is an amendment to a contract that we already have for consulting services. This is to help set up the architecture and give us guidance on how to move this data. but they're not doing the moving of the data. We are. Is that correct?
No, they're providing consulting services to help us analyze the data that needs to be archived into the data lake.
Mm-hmm. But they're not moving the data themselves. We're moving it.
No, yeah, they're working with us to understand the data that needs to be archived. And we have our internal team working with Navigator, as well as the vendor of the data lake, to archive the data.
Okay. Second question.
Team effort. You want?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we're looking for their counsel. I'm John Shuffler with IT. Yeah, so we're looking for their counsel to basically build out a data dictionary of all the things that need archived within, especially with the SAP HR system, because it's very complex and over 20 years old. So we're looking to kind of staff augment with them to complete those projects.
Okay. How much have we paid them so far?
This was for the first project when they helped us to develop the enterprise data architecture roadmap. It was about 113, I think. 130.
I'm not sure. I don't want to give you a figure and mislead you. I don't know the exact figure that's been paid out on the contract you're asking. The
Okay.
existing contract.
The existing contract. I mean, is this an expansion of scope, or is this just an extension of time and money?
Extension of time and money, plus additional consulting services. They've already completed what was part of the original contract,
Part of it.
which was the enterprise data architecture roadmap. That's been completed. So now we're extending that contract for additional consulting services from this consulting company.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is because obviously, I'm just jumping into this. I'm seeing this for the first time today, so I apologize for my level of ignorance on this. But just looking at the original contract, there are, these 4 items in the payment section, in section 2.1, these 4 items, and there's also in this contract, there's like a Gantt chart of the things that they're expected to do. It's a 10-week schedule, and so I'm a little confused about this. If this is not an additional scope, then I don't understand why we are extending this a year when that 9-month original contract, and then I'm seeing a 10-week schedule of things. What is the delay? Why is this taking forever?
Can't answer that part, but Maggie has just updated me, and the original contract said $100,000 paid to it to date.
Okay.
Yeah,
And and that's the thing. Like I'm just looking at the original contract that was in OnBase.
Yeah, the original contract has been delivered. They've delivered on all their deliverables for that contract.
Okay, so they've delivered on all of the deliverables in this original contract, but we are extending this original contract for more time and money for new services. That's what I'm confused about.
It is new services to now help us with the actual data archiving.
Okay, now the actual moving of the
Actual
data.
project to do that, yeah, project work.
That initial project was to help us to develop the roadmap for the county. So that's the timeline that you were initially talking about.
Okay, so
now part of that roadmap is archiving.
So operationalize that for me. What does one do when one sits down and archives?
Well, there's kind of a long process too, but basically you would identify what we're looking for Navigator to do a lot of the analysis up front to identify what things need archived, especially with the SAP system. It's rather complex, and there's going to be a lot of we're going to have to go through all the different data elements and kind of figure out exactly, build out a whole data dictionary, basically spell out exactly these are the components that need to archive, and then we have to work with our teams to kind of build out extracts to logically get that information out of SAP in order to present it in a way that we can basically shut down that system eventually. That's the end goal, is basically to shut down the SAP systems and the famous and all these systems. So there's a lot of upfront work that you have to do, analysis type work that need to complete it.
It's to be able to shut down the systems, as well as to be able to have the ability to access the archive
Information
data.
in that
archive, to access the archive data easily in a user-friendly manner, as opposed to just archiving into a backup tape or something. The data lake is a newer technology that will help us to easily understand what needs to be extracted and have subject matter experts, not IT folks necessarily, be able to understand what's in the archive or the data lake and to be able to extract it for their needs.
Okay, so I guess we asked a question already, will this contract continue after 12/31? And the response that we got was it shouldn't, but that is dependent on getting the data moved. Do you guys anticipate this being done by the end of the year?
That's our goal.
That's our goal, yeah.
That's our goal.
Is there some danger of that not happening? Or is that a comfortable time frame?
At this point, I think it's a comfortable.
Yeah, I think it's
timeframe.
comfortable time frame, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, item number BC 2019-109, Department of Human Resources, submitting an amendment to a contract with Occupational Health Centers of Ohio, PA, Co., doing business as Concentra Medical Centers for drug toxicology screening and occupational health service evaluation. And it's for the period August 15th, 2017 through August 14th, 2020 to expand the scope of services by adding the County Sheriff's Department and audiogram testing services effective February 11th, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $67,800.
Department of Human Resources. So this amendment is the request of the Sheriff's Department. They've been using Concentra for multiple years for drug toxicology physicals and audiograms, and essentially paying by voucher for those services. They can no longer pay for voucher. They have to have a contract. So they're joining on to the active HR contract that we already have in place. And this will address the sheriff's needs as well as adding audiograms, which were not included in the initial RFP.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-110, Department of Human Resources. It's a two-part item. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 44580, which will result in an award recommendation to Health and Fitness Incorporated in the amount of $33,685, and it's for the purchase and installation of various employee wellness equipment to be used by staff at the Virgil E. Brown Building. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Holly Woods again, Department of Human Resources. So the recommended vendor for this RFP exemption was selected by state contract. The purchase is for wellness equipment to be installed at the Virgil E. Brown Building. This replaces equipment that was there, but we moved it to Jane Edna Hunter as a result of construction that was going on at the Virgil Brown Building. This firm is one of two that are approved on state contract for this equipment.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Saran.
I'm just curious, who is the individual or group of individuals that determine what equipment to buy?
So myself and the chief talent officer, as well as the wellness coordinator, and we have established just some basic starting out equipment that will be implemented. And then our goal is once we fully establish these wellness centers, we may build on it in the future. But primarily the original equipment will be ellipticals, treadmills, and different types of bicycles.
Okay. In thinking about potential expansion of the offerings, what do you mean by expansion? What kind of equipment are you considering for the future?
So we have done some surveys. Our goal would be after we get the initial room set up with this basic equipment, we would look at things like potentially weights, some other type of weight equipment. And again, we would do some research later on, but we started with some of the basic equipment that people are most familiar with.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker.
Just curious in the planning, if we hadn't had the roofing project and we hadn't moved the equipment, would we be asking today for equipment to go into the Jane and Hunter building?
We would.
We would,
Mhm.
so.
And it takes some time to get these rooms established. So one of the ideas of, can we order this all at once? It does take us some time, one, to get locations established, rooms established at the location. Most of them require some type of remodeling. So in the scope of priorities, we've been doing kind of one at a time, just because it takes us a while to get a room set aside and the remodel done in order to purchase that equipment, which is under warranty, so we have a timing aspect as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is the master plan then for fitness rooms throughout our county buildings? How many more do you have yet to place?
So we have 3 more locations where we do have a room that's been identified, and they're either in process of being remodeled or just starting that process now.
Sure. Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-111, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting various amendments to a contract with City of Cleveland and Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. Effective March 1st, 2018, A, for fiscal agent services in connection with the facilitation of the development of the First Year Cleveland Initiative, and it's for the period June 1st, 2016 through April 30th, 2019, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2019, no additional funds required. And B, effective January 1st, 2019, to change the status from serving as fiscal agent to program operator in connection with the facilitation of the development of the First Year Cleveland Initiative. And it's for the period June 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2019, to extend the time period to September 30th, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $500,000.
Good morning, I'm Shantae McCarty from the Office of Health and Human Services, here to present for the First Year Cleveland contract in support of continuing to support the infant mortality, the reduction of the infant mortality program. I also have a representative from Case Western Reserve here with me. Bernie, you can come up and we'll be able to answer whatever questions. She'll be here to answer any program questions that you all may have.
Thanks. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any. So I will move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Next item, item number BC 2019-112, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Reentry, submitting an amendment to an agreement with Cuyahoga County Public Library for administration of the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Adult Basic Educational Services Program for inmates in county correctional facilities. And it's for the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2020, to modify the scope of services effective February 1st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $200,000.
Good morning, Fred Bollison with the Office of Reentry. This is for a program that has been going on in the county correctional facilities for over 20 years. It's always been provided by Project Learn at the end of 2017. Project Learn combined with the Cuyahoga County Public Library. So it is essentially the same program, but the contract is now with the county library. This was RFP'd in 2017 for the beginning of 2018. This is just an amendment for 2 years, $100,000 per year, which is funded through the HHS levy, and it has been already included in the Office of Reentry budget. Other than the amount and the date to take us through 2020, there's one technical amendment in the scope of services, which would change the requirements for instructors from having 5 years teaching experience and 3 years working with the incarcerated population to 3 years experience and general teaching experience and 1 year working with those with criminal histories. The reason for that is they had to hire extra staff, and they were not having difficulty finding people with that required experience. But at the end of this contract, the person hired will have that 5 years total experience and 3 years working with those with criminal histories. The amendment was delayed because the library was not very prompt in providing certain of the required documentation. However, the services have gone on uninterrupted, but without county funding. They have other funds that are used also. The county doesn't provide all the funds for this program, so they were able to just shift the timing and use other funds to continue the program. They will not be invoicing the county for any services until the time of approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilwoman Baker.
Is there any extra supervisory time that's needed for the 1 year of experience in teaching those with criminal histories? Do you have any concerns there that they will not have the experience and that they need to be watched a little closer than someone who may have had 3 years of experience?
Right. All of their staff up until this point had many more years of experience there. We did not want anyone to be, this is a difficult population or a challenging population, I should say, to deal with if one has no experience. However, they're hiring new staff and they were not able to locate someone with that. In general, they do have most of the, everyone except for this new staff person that they seek to hire will have at least 3 years dealing with criminal histories.
Okay, my question was, though, for those with only 1 year and they are new to the program and don't have the experience like those with 3 years, are you watching them closer? Are you supervising them and singling them out to make sure that
they have, in addition to the instructors, they have supervisors who work with them and watch over them. We do not supervise them directly in the facility, but we review and supervise, through their reporting to us of any problems and issues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question properly the first time.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-113, Office of the Medical Examiner, recommending an award on requisition 44285 and enter into a sole source contract with Cybergenetics Corporation in the amount not to exceed $75,000 for maintenance on the True LL casework system, and it's for the period February 11th, 2019 through February 10th, 2022.
Hugh Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. This is a maintenance agreement for the True Allele system. This allows the DNA lab to do mixture analysis when there is either degraded or multiple samples at once. The previous period of time was included in the purchase cost.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Next item is a two-part item. Item number BC 2019-114, Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 44451, which will result in an award recommendation to Lexipol LLC in the amount not to exceed $309,300 for subscription-based risk management and policy manual services. And it's for the period February 11th, 2019 through February 10th, 2022, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Donna Cleel, Sheriff's Fiscal Manager, seeking approval for the contract with Lexipol. This will be a 3-year contract. They are a subscription-based company, a vendor, and what they do is they're nationwide, but they write these policies and based on like Ohio minimum jail standards, state requirements, and federal mandates. Again, they will come in to our facility. They will go through all our current policies and our bargaining unit agreements, and then they will customize the policies based on our bargaining unit agreements and our current policies and our needs. And so that's what they do, and what they do also is they meet with us whenever there is an update, whether it's federal, state, or ODRC, they will then automatically update our policies based on any updates that come through at whatever level. And I know there was some other questions, so if you want to ask me those questions, because I did not have a chance to answer them, but one of them was, is this information available online for updates? Well, again, if there's updates, as long as we're in contract with them, they automatically update us. Now, my understanding is once the contract ends, if we don't renew the contract, updates are available to us online, but it would be then up to us to go online, get these updates, and do the automatic, and then update our own policies once the contract is over. That was one of the questions. Is there some other questions?
Let me ask our team, does anybody have any questions? Councilman Miller.
Can you explain the process by which recommendations that come out of Lexipol, how those would then be approved to be incorporated into our policies and procedures?
Okay, this is now, from what I understand, because this vendor was found by our law enforcement division, and they've been going to these, they've been attending some of these webinars, the law enforcement and the jail. So what happens is, and you know what I did, and I'll send this to you electronically, but I printed these out. Those are a table of contents of all the different policies for law enforcement and for the jail, and that's all I printed was a table of contents. It's actually a rather thick manual, but these are all the policies that they provide. Again, based on Ohio minimum jail standards, state requirements, and federal mandates. Then they work with us to customize it to our needs. Now, if you're asking for approval, I would not be the one approving that. That would probably be the sheriff or the chief or Chief Carney, the executive. That would be doing the approval on any of our new policies. I'm not sure if I answered your question. So.
To the executive, do we have a set of written policies and procedures for the jail?
It's my understanding that we have many policies and procedures that have been worked on while we're waiting for Lexipol. The sheriff has led that effort, and with Chief Taylor, they have been modifying or changing policies to the extent they're capable of doing it, but Lexipol does this, so that's why Lexipol's being brought in, is my understanding.
So if I asked you what the existing policies are, is there a document written down in one place that could be accessed that would tell you what the existing policies are?
Yes, the jail does have a manual for like all the existing policies. Again, my understanding is this is much more thorough, but they do have a manual of all existing policies, and if you would like, I could send that to you because I know there's an electronic version, so I could get that over to you of the existing policies. We have that both in law enforcement and in the jail. Again, this is much more detailed, much more thorough, and will and this is also what it is each CO, each deputy, everybody would have a unique ID. Part of this, they would be required to go onto their computer, log in with their unique ID, read everything, and then attest to it to make sure everybody read it. And they would have to do that annually so they could continue to be updated with any new policies or any new updates. So that's where the uniqueness is with this, that there's an attestation phase to this for all employees required to read this. But we do have policies in place, some.
So I would like if you could send me that.
Absolutely.
So we have a written set of policies in place. Who has to approve it to change any of these policies?
I don't want to misstate ever, so I can get back. Donna can get back to you.
Yeah, I'd rather a precise response later than a guess.
That's
now.
always better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll speak to the sheriff, and the sheriff can speak to the executive.
The other question along with that one is since the policies affect the prisoners, which are part of the general public, do any of the policies and procedures go to the Administrative Review Board?
That I do not know. I can get you an answer on that also.
Yeah,
The Administrative Review Board, okay.
Yeah, I would like an answer.
I don't know that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you'll take care of that.
Absolutely. I'll take care of both of them.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Sarin.
I've been asked to ask you a question about the term of the contract. I noticed in the contract it said initial term, and it was a 12-month period, but then there was other reference to the 3-year term. And so I just wanted to confirm that this $309,000 is for the total 3-year term?
Correct. It is for the 3-year term. With the initial term, what it is they work on getting the policies in place, and then they work on what they call as the implementation, where the whole manual's put together, where we get all the COs and deputies online to attest to everything. Then the rest of it is just like kind of maintenance. But that's the 300 and I think it was 9,000. Yeah, that's the entire for law enforcement and the JO 3 years. Yes.
Another question about the use of the material and derivative works. This is something that, let's say at the end of 3 years, we decide that we are no longer interested in using this service. We can still use the material that they've created for us and expand on that?
Correct. We will own that material, and we will also have access to online updates. Now, we would have to do that ourselves, but we would have access to any updates that came in, whether they be state, federal, ODRC. We would have access to all those updates.
Okay.
Further questions? Councilwoman Baker.
Lexipol was considered a sole source.
Correct.
But we are asking that it's an RFP exemption. If it were a sole source, or because it's not considered, I guess my question would be, what if you had the time, would you have gone through the sole source and this would have been the choice?
Yes, and my understanding again was, and I spoke to OPD about this, was that the sole source takes a lot longer. And I know from management this was kind of on a critical path. They wanted to get this moving. So speaking with our buyer at OPD, she had told me that going the RFP exemption route was much quicker. But we did do some research, and there's other people out there that may help you write a policy, but this was the only company we could find that actually has a database of policies specific to Ohio or specific to whatever state they're in. So, yes, it's our understanding they are sole source. We just went RFP exemption just to expedite it.
If I may follow, so at the end of 3 years, or as we're getting close to the end of this contract, would you be asking for a sole source if you're satisfied with this company?
If the managers told me they wanted to continue on with Lexipol, we would start it much sooner and we would be doing a sole source, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Next item is BC 2019-115, Department of Sustainability. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 44644, which will result in an award recommendation to Coalition for Green Capital in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for green bank services, and it's for the period February 11th, 2019 through February 10th, 2020. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Mike Foley from the Department of Sustainability. Coalition for Green Capital is a national nonprofit that helps organize and set up green banks or green funds. They've worked with New York, California, Maryland, other kind of large entities to help create these banks basically that just focus on lending both kind of on good terms, good rates for clean energy projects and green infrastructure projects. We've been working with the Cleveland Foundation and the Gunn Foundation to kind of figure out how to map this out, basically. These guys can help us put together this green fund. They've got expertise in it. We'll be putting in $50,000 Gun Foundation's putting in 71,500, and so is the Cleveland Foundation. So we're teaming up with the two foundations. The idea is to get a fund that would have a minimum of $25 million in it, using sources from that the foundations have in terms of program-related investments that they are willing to put towards clean energy work, and look to other sources such as some of the banking institutions and some of the national foundations like LISC and Enterprise Foundation. So it's a way to basically put together resources that can just concentrate on kind of fighting climate change, working on clean energy projects.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the notes here say that Gund and Cleveland are each doing 72.5. Is it 71.5 or 72.5? Do you know?
It's 71.5.
71.5?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I think that's right. I have to go back and look. I'll get clarification, but it's a total $195,000 project. So I guess it's 72.5. I'm sorry. So correct.
Can't add that fast.
It's 72.5. Yeah.
All right. Any questions? Councilwoman Baker.
So we are investing right now $50,000, and the notes say perhaps that the next step will be an additional $50,000. Is that?
No. So we're investing $50,000 total into the contract. We'll hire these guys for $50,000 with the other money from the foundations. What we invest is, something we'll come back to you later. I mean, the county may want to invest, and I would advocate or urge that we do invest in the Green Bank at a later date. But right now, this is just kind of to map out the opportunities, the resources that already exist, where this thing will be housed, how to be operated, all that stuff.
1 year's enough time?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be done by summer, and we'll start doing projects by the end of the year.
Great. Further questions? Councilman Miller.
Will this funding allow us to actually get the Green Bank constituted and up and running, or is this just for planning funds?
It's for both. So it's both it's planning and implementation.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Thank you. All right, we're on to the consent agenda, 116 through 118. Are there any questions?
I would just like to make a clarification on the first travel item for the Office of the Medical Examiner's Office. The dates of travel should be February 16th through February 23rd of 2019, not 2018.
Does anybody have any questions? People ready? I move to approve the items on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda items are approved, and now I believe we have some other business.
Yes, we do. We have one additional item. It's item number BC 2019-119. It's a two-part item, Fiscal Office, Office of Budget and Management. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 44745, which will result in an award recommendation to Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center in the amount not to exceed $300,000 for support services for victims of domestic violence. And it's for the period January 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
What was the dollar amount on that?
The dollar amount is not to exceed $300,000. And the funding source is SR Health and Community Services.
Maggie Keenan, Office of Budget Management. The county has been issuing this funding to a domestic violence shelter for at least as long as I've been here, so going back to 2006. This is statutory. We are required to collect a portion of marriage license fees at $17 on every marriage license, $32 on every divorce, dissolution, or annulment filing in domestic relations court, and that money gets put into a domestic violence fund. These are on our schedule, so this should not be completely unfamiliar to the council members and the executive. It's in our all funds budget. What's different this year is that, similar to what somebody else had mentioned, now we need to encumber the funds and have an actual contract with the vendor, which we had not done before. By code, the vendor is picked by the Domestic Violence Advisory Board. That was selected. We see the grant application, we get notice of it, but then we make 2 payments every year from the fund.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Are there any questions? Councilman Miller.
Why did this item not get on the regular agenda?
That's my error. It's my error. It should have been on the regular agenda, but we do need to have it expedited because I need to make a payment this month.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to, well, do I have to move to amend the agenda?
You have to move to amend the
Okay,
item.
I'll move to amend the agenda to consider the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of amending the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is amended. Now, I move to approve the item. Is there a second on the item?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item is approved. Thank you.
Next, we have four separate mission critical items. The first mission critical item is with the Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44265 in the amount not to exceed $7,250 to Prism Glass, doing business as Allied Glass, for replacement of a broken window on the first floor of the Virgil Brown building. And the funding source is the Internal Services General Fund.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. Requesting approval of mission critical vendors, Prism Glass, DBA, Allied Glass. We've used them in the past. The dollar amount $7,250. This is replacement of a first floor broken window at the Virgil Brown building. We did put this out for the mission critical 2-hour bid period. We had no other vendors inquiry. The cost, it's a unique window, so we try to match it, but it's also a large size. This thing's over 8 feet tall, 3 feet wide, so it's a large window. It has not been determined how it was broke. I believe someone came to work the next day and it was cracked, so we had to get that boarded up and get this window ordered ASAP.
Thank you. I move to amend today's agenda to consider the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is amended. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Is it usual for us to get only one bid on these things?
It seems like recent history, the glass, Allied Glass seems to be the only one that's been responsive. We put them out in buy speed. We have bids that are not mission critical for a related product, and we put it out for multiple efforts. They seem to be the only bidder. We do have a large RFP out for a related commodity. We're hoping we generate more than one vendor on this RFP though. So.
We've had a number of these glass items come up.
Absolutely.
Is it possible that we could put out a bid to handle these things on a requirements basis and maybe get a better deal than we would get if we do them one by one as an emergency?
So currently we do have an RFP out. So Public Works, we've been releasing our multiple RFPs in conjunction with OPD. They've been helping us out. We've got 17 RFPs out right now. They're all going to be under a master contract. This commodity is a big piece of that, which will eliminate this need for mission criticals for glass. When glass breaks, we have to get that addressed as soon as possible. We hope to get an actual contract in place as a result of those RFPs. So it's currently out to bid right now.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker.
Yes, is there at least a reasonable guess as to whether this was done on purpose or that it was a structural crack and broken? And are there cameras to help you determine that?
I don't know the answer to cameras. I don't know, Mike, and I hate to be judgmental. I haven't heard of any other windows being broken. Typically, first floor, it's accessible by anyone walking by, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's most likely vandalism, but without any report from any type of engineer of any sort. But as I've said, we didn't have any reports of any other structural issues or concerns at that building.
Was the break, did it look like a brick went through it, or did it look like it was just a?
It looked like something was possibly thrown against it. So, there was nothing inside the building. It's thicker glass, but there's any type of shatter or any type of broken piece, we have to get that replaced as soon as possible.
And of course, that's safety glass.
It's thicker. I believe this one was.
It doesn't.
It's a quarter-inch thick. It's a quarter-inch thick. So, for something to damage it, it could. Yeah.
The pieces.
Yeah. There's nothing inside the office that it was linked to, but you can tell something happened to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next mission critical item, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44867 to Prism Glass, doing business as Allied Glass, in the amount not to exceed $9,150, and it's for broken glass replacement at the Juvenile Justice Center. And the funding source is Internal Service Fund, General Fund.
Good morning, Tom Pavich again, Public Works. Same vendor, Prism Glass, DBA Allied Glass. Dollar amount was $9,150. This is a broken glass at the Juvenile Justice Center. There was actually 2 large pieces there. They were damaged in-house. We did put this out in buy speed for the minimum 2 hours. Allied was the only responsive vendor. These were 2 windows, so that's the high dollar amount. These are actually larger. These were over 7.5 feet tall by 3 feet, and these are the actual armored protective glass. So it's our armor clad. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
I may. So again,
Councilwoman Baker.
Any good guess as to how these broke?
It was done internally.
What does that mean?
Probably by the inmates. I don't know if it was on camera. I'm told it's still being looked at right now. So this was just happened less than a month ago. So
a month ago, we still don't know by the cameras?
I have not followed up to find out if it's on camera exactly the inmate that did the damage, but I can send we'll fire an email off to the courts to see if we can find out.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, I move to amend the agenda to consider the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is amended. All those in favor of the item itself? I move to approve the item itself. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Critical item is from the Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44877 in the amount not to exceed $1,759.52 to Fishman Flooring Solutions. And the funding source is Capital Projects, and it's to provide vinyl corner guards and adhesive to be used at the Cleveland Police Headquarters building.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works again, requesting mission critical approval. This is the vendor's Fishman Flooring Solutions. The dollar amount's $1,759.52. This is for corner guards. So if when you're walking down a hallway, there's corners everywhere. This was part of a touch-up at the Cleveland Police Headquarters. There was a report of some sharper edges. Someone may have gotten injured, from the sharper edges, so we had to request mission critical to get these guards. I think there was 166 total. So we did put this out in buy speed for the minimum 2 hours. Fishman was the only responsive vendor. So this is part of the ongoing touch-ups, if you have a construction project.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Miller.
Why is this something we had to do as a separate item as opposed to someone working on this project having to take care of this as part of a punch list?
I don't believe there was actual corner guards during the construction project, and it was afterwards that someone may have gotten hurt. There were some sharper edges. They realized, okay, they need to put the corner edges, the corner guards. They're pieces of plastic. They're L-shaped. Goes right on the corner. Now, why people are bumping into the corners, I don't know, but it was some sharper edges. They had to address them immediately. So they addressed them all as one.
Was the general construction on this project done in-house or by contract?
It was done in-house.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I move to amend the agenda to consider the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is amended. I move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more.
We have one more mission critical item. It is for the medical examiner's office, recommending an award on requisition 44809 in the amount not to exceed $2,775 to Government Scientific, and it is to provide a new microcentrifuge to replace the one that has malfunctioned in the DNA lab. And it's for the period February 1st, 2019 through March 1st, 2019. And the funding source is the Medical Examiner's General Fund.
Hugh Shannon from the Medical Examiner's Office. So the primary centrifuge in the DNA lab failed, so it needed to be replaced. It's not a particularly complicated piece of equipment, but it's an essential one for getting the DNA separated. So we do have a backup, but it's smaller, and so it cuts into our processing times significantly without the primary. So that's why we needed to get it done quickly.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Councilman
What was
Miller.
the method of procurement on this item?
I believe that we just put it on buy speed to see who could replace it quickest.
And are there multiple vendors who can provide this?
I assume so, yes.
And did we get multiple bids or just one?
I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to go back and review that.
To find out, let me know.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Sarin.
Why did the original piece of equipment fail?
Use.
Okay. Are we getting the same type, brand?
Well, it's going to be obviously newer, and I'll have to check and see what they actually purchased, but that's not really what that's handled by the laboratory, and they know, they stay up on what equipment is best for their use. So,
can we find out how old the other piece of equipment was before it failed? Okay. And also, do any of these things come with some sort of warranty for this kind of thing, or is that normal wear and tear just won't be covered anyway? Or?
Right. So we have kind of levels of equipment. It makes sense when you spend $300,000 or $400,000 on electron microscopes, things like that. They have maintenance agreements on them. They're somewhat pricey maintenance agreements too. So I think the last one we just saw for True Allele is $75,000 for 3 years. For a centrifuge that we can replace with a couple of $1,000, spending a couple of $1,000 a year to have it on maintenance doesn't make sense. So we try to balance it and make those decisions with the inventory that we've got. But usually when we buy brand new equipment, it comes with some limited warranties, and whether we extend it or not will depend on availability of certain equipment and specialties that are required to keep it maintained and the actual costs.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker. Oh, yours were answered. Very good. Okay, I move to amend today's agenda to consider the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The agenda is amended. I move to approve the item. Is there a second for that? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I just have one, excuse me, one public comment. Next Monday is President's Day, and in observance of that, county offices will be closed. So the next scheduled board meeting will be Tuesday, February 19th.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilman Miller. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor, please say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.